Today on the Railway Room, it's a quick build narrow gauge Santa's sleigh. Hello friends and welcome to the Railway Room. So today, a bit of a festive one, I'm going to be attempting a quick build of a narrow gauge Santa's sleigh in 009. So the model railway that I'm building is a modern day preserved railway. So actually one of the most important parts of the year for a modern preserved railway is the Santa season. Lots and lots of trains, extra footfall, it's great publicity for the railway. For a lot of kids it's to be their first time on steam railways, and it provides a lot of injection of extra cash at a time of year when over winter footfalls can be low. A lot of trains won't be running. It really helps keep things going and pays for all the winter maintenance and all that. And I think it'll be really nice to operate some Santa specials on my railway during December. So in order to do that, I need to have Santa. Now obviously different railways operate their Santa specials in different ways. Quite a lot of them will have Santa in a special grotto at one of the stations where kids can go and visit him there, or he might be on the train going up and down. I'm taking inspiration here from some of the smaller railways, like the 15-inch gauge lines such as Ravenglass, Romney and Bure Valley, where they have a Santa's sleigh as a separate wagon so that Santa can get pulled along and arrive by train, which I think is a really cool concept. I haven't actually seen any 2-foot gauge or larger lines that have Santa's sleigh, but I'm sure there must be ones out there. So if anybody does know of a 2-foot gauge line or larger that has a Santa's sleigh, I'd really love to see it, and I'd track down some pictures and that. So the idea is the Santa special will start from the lower terminus, work its way up to an intermediate station, and once it's in the station, Santa on his sleigh will come down, hauled by a steam engine on the other line into the other platform, so all the kids can then see Santa, and then the Santa special will continue up to the upper terminus, where there will presumably be mulled wine and minced pies for the grown-ups, because it's my railway and that's what I want to do. So I'm playing a bit fast and loose with the prototypes here really, because obviously being 009 it's representing a between 2-foot and 2-foot 6 gauge prototype at 4mm. But I just think it's a really cool concept and something that'll look really nice on the layout, and it's going to bring me a lot of pleasure, I'm sure. So rule 1 again. So what I'm going to be using as the basis for this build is one of these, if we can focus in. It's a Peco N Gauge wagon chassis. This is a 15-foot wheelbase wagon with steel type sole bars. To be honest, it doesn't really matter which one that I use, because it's going to be hidden underneath the sleigh itself anyway. The main reason for using this is because I picked up about 4 or 5 of them cheap a while ago, and I've been looking for projects to use them on, so they seem like a good way to use up one of these. The other good thing about using one of these is that Peco actually make coupling adapters for them that fit in directly to allow them to be used for 009. So I'll be using some of those. So let's just have a quick look at the chassis and then we'll get cracking. Okay, so I'm just going to quickly prepare the chassis. I've got the wheels there, I'm going to keep to one side for now. And so the first thing I want to do is get rid of these end scale buffers. I'm not going to be needing those, they should just cut off. And then it comes with a little weight. I am going to use that, I think, just because the body's pure plastic, so it's going to need a little extra something. So I'm just going to put a little bit of glue on the chassis there, and then that weight will just drop in, and so there's these little circles here that will hold it into the correct position. I'll just leave that to dry. Now what I've got to go with it is a set of these Peco 009 couplers that are designed theoretically to go with these chassis. So you get basically a bunch of little bits Your shanks come in two parts, and then there's a whole bunch of the metal hooks as well. You just glue the two halves, and they should just snap together. Okay, so it goes together kind of something like that. And then choose one side to be the bottom, and we just need to cut the lug off the bottom. Now, one thing I will note is that it does say to use the poly cement to glue the two of these pieces together. They'll probably just snap together without them, to be honest, because they are a very snug fit. But from experience, you do need to be careful. If you get poly cement on the locating lugs at the front and the rear, they will soften them, and it can make it difficult to then get them into the corresponding holes. They'll just turn to mush, and there's one of them I actually had to cut the lugs off because they just wouldn't fit into the holes after they'd been softened by the poly cement. If you want to focus towards the end of the shaft, there's a little hole there now, and I'm just going to use the tweezers to try and get that in. I'm kind of making really hard work of this because it's difficult to hold it where the camera can see, and do this is actually easier doing it off camera. There we go, that's in now. So there's the coupling, and then theoretically these are designed to just slide into the slots either end of that. My experience with these suggests that they are an extremely tight fit. Let's see if I take the hook out. Is that going to go in any better? Yeah. And now I can put the hook. Okay, so the coupling's put on to both ends, and then all it needs to do is to just snap the wheel sets into place. Bump, bump. And there we have the wagon chassis ready to go. Okay, so I started just cutting two pieces of rectangular plasticard. So these are 6 centimetres long by 2.5 high. So that's going to be the maximum height. And I'm just going to free draw onto the side of it a big plan. Now I've started by drawing 2 lines across. So the bottom one is 0.5 centimetre off the bottom, and that's going to be the floor level. So anything below that is going to be below the floor and covering some of the axles and that. The top one is 1.5 centimetres from the bottom, so it's 1 centimetre difference, and that's going to be basically the level of the top of the bulk of the sleigh. And so then I'm just going to hopefully roughly freehand in some a design. It doesn't really matter that I'm doing it in pen because I'm going to be painting over all of this anyway. Probably pencil's better because when you change your mind it's then easier to get rid of the ones you don't really like. And then you've got just the design that you're happy with. And so I'm going to do a little rounded bit on the bottom. That's just going to be the effectively the sleighs, the runner on the bottom. And then I'm going to have a doorway near the front. So it's going to be sort of around here-ish. But I'll just make those nice and straight. Measure that up. Kind of something like that. So I think that'll roughly do. And then I'm just going to get my super sharp scalpel. I'll probably put a new blade on this one. This is a slightly older blade. And then I'm just going to cut around all of the lines and get me the template for the first one. Now obviously I've never seen the real Santa's sleigh because I'm always tucked up in bed on Christmas Eve. So I'm going for a kind of a combination between the Ravenglass and the Romney ones. The interesting thing about this build is that you can you've got a lot of leeway to personalise it and make something unique. So let's see if I can cut this out, and hopefully I'll be reasonably happy. And so I've got kind of the basic shape. Now obviously where I've been freehanded it's quite difficult to get good smooth corners, so I'm just going to have to tidy up some of the curves. But then I think reasonably happy with that. Yeah, you can kind of see what it's going to become. Okay, so this was probably the trickiest bit of the whole build. Particularly trying to get the curves fairly smooth. Once I've got a shape that I'm reasonably happy with, what I'm then going to do is just lightly blue tack it onto the second piece, and then use that as a template to cut around so that both sides of the sleigh are identical. So that's going to be the tricky bit when you've got an unusual shape like this. So now that's in position there. I'm just going to get my trusty sharp blade again and just cut around. So it's just going to be very gently at first, following the lines. And I probably need to go over it a couple of times. I'm just doing exactly what I didn't want to do and damaged the original. That is why you only apply a small amount of pressure and just go over the marking several times, because otherwise, curses. And so once I've got both sides cut away, what I'll do is I'll just go around with the file again just to smooth everything off, and in addition to making sure that both sides are identical, it'll also help smooth over where I've accidentally nicked into the template there, smooth that over. I have kind of cut into it a little bit, so what I might just do is get some plastic putty in there just to fill that and smooth it back over. Okay, so that's all smoothed away now, and hopefully when I prise these apart and get rid of the blue tack, So I'm just going to need to wash the blue tack off there, I think. But now I have manufactured two hopefully identical sides for the sleigh. So next I need to make the floor. So I just need to measure the length that I need, and that's 5.3 centimetres. So I've just got this, which is 2.5 centimetres across. So I need to measure down 5.3. And there's my floor. So the next thing I need to do is to try and build the, construct the front and the rear to be able to make essentially a box. Now if I was feeling fancy, I could try and make it curved to follow the curves of the sides. But one thing I've noticed looking at the pictures of the 15-inch gauge ones is that they tend to be just essentially square or rectangular wagons, and the insides of the sides are effectively empty space. So I'm going to follow that because A, it's going to be a lot easier, and B, if in doubt, follow the prototype. Yes, be prototypical, that's good. So the height of the main body is 1 centimetre, so I'm going to stick with the 1 centimetre for a front and a back, and then this bit's just going to be essentially a spoiler. So in fact I've got the 1 centimetre bits from the sides, so I could just cut the correct width out of that. Obviously you could just use new pieces of plastic card for this, but I'm always one for being frugal. So it's good to be able to reuse the bits that we've cut away from the side. And it needs to be this long. So that was 2.5. So that's one side, and then just do the same thing on the other one. Okay, so now I've got my 5 sides, the left and right, front, back, and the floor. So I can start to assemble this into a box. Just get a bit of the old polystyrene cement, and I'm going to start putting a line. So I want to get that lined up with the runners. And then very quickly, before that sets, get the sides into place, because then the sides will hold. And hopefully make it nice and square. So it's probably advisable doing this to have some kind of a set square to make sure everything is at nice right angles. I'm having to just eyeball this. And now I can put the other side on. So just need to make sure that the floor lines up nice and square. Oh, botheration. And obviously it's at this point that I've realised my big mistake, which is that I've not cut the door out. So before that dries, this side, I'm just going to have to peel that off. And so now I need to cut the doorway out of this. Okay, I'll just cut the doorway out of that second side, and now good to glue that into position. It's going to be best to do it this way up. Essentially, that's the basis of it, and everything else is just going to be adding extra detailing and stuff. So I'll just let that dry, and then we'll move on. Okay, now so because obviously my railway is in Wales, I need to provide some kind of shelter for poor old Father Christmas, because it is rather prone to being a bit wet in Wales in December. Well, any time of the year really. So I'm going to build a little grotto on the back of the sleigh where Santa can take protection from the elements, and also the kiddies can go in there and see Santa, tell him what they want for Christmas and all that. So I've just made another 5 pieces here of the plastic card. So there's a rear wall which is 2.3 centimeters by 2.5 wide. There's then 2 sides which slope from 2.3 at the back to 2.5 at the front, and they are 2 centimeters deep. So they're going to go in kind of roughly like that. And then the roof is, I think it's 2.5 square. Yep, so that's 2.5 square, which means it's going to have a little bit of an overhang at the front for a bit of extra protection. So on the front wall, I'm not going to have an actual door, I'm just going to have an open doorway. Santa's always open for visitors. So the front wall is 1.3 centimeters by 2.5 tall again. So what I'm going to try and do is build it first and then put it into position. So remembering which way round everything goes. So before I go any further and put this together, I'm going to want to paint all around the inside. That's going to be really tricky to paint once the grotto is in position. So I'm just going to take these and give them a quick spray of primer, and then let them dry, and then I'll get it painted up and start putting it together. Okay, so here are the 2 main parts, the sleigh body and the grotto. Just quickly sprayed them over in a black primer, and then I'm going to paint them up. So the bulk of the body is going to be in red, so for that I'm going to be using the Tamiya X7 red, and the grotto the grotto is going to be in a brown. So I'm using again a Tamiya linoleum deck brown for that. The floor of the sleigh I want to be a brown. Okay, so I've painted up the basic sleigh into the red and the grotto into brown with a black roof. And for the floor of the sledge itself, I've used another Tamiya, it's the XF78 wooden deck tan. I've got something that I built, a little sofa. That's part of a kit from Scale Scenes Indoor Detailing, but I think once it's inside the grotto, it's just going to be enough of a representation of something there. So I'm just going to work out where it's going to be, and then I'm going to get some PVA on the bottom, and I'm going to glue that into place. And it's quite large, so there's not a lot of space, the poly cement, and I'm just going to poly cement around the base, and then hopefully this should just slot into position. So it's starting to come together now, and the next thing I think we'll need to try and fit the wagon chassis onto the base. Now that's going to be a little bit tricky to get that in position, so I'm just going to need to measure it and then mark down the exact halfway. So you couldn't really see what was going on because I got my hand in the way between the camera and the thing, but we've got the wagon chassis. It's exactly the same length as the sleigh, so it's glued into position. Just need to allow that to properly dry, and then add the final details. So while we've got Santa and the grotto at the back of the sleigh, I need something at the front just to add a bit more interest to it. So I picked up from Hampshire Models on eBay these 00 gauge tied sacks. I think they're 3D printed. They look a little bit rough at the moment because they're just in the plain plastic, but I'm hopeful that once I've got them painted up into nice Christmassy colours, they're going to look just the part. They're pretty inexpensive, so I'm pretty happy with those. I'll need to make sure that the bottoms are nice and flat so they sit comfortably. But yeah, I'll have some bags of sacks of presents around the front, so I'll just paint those up quickly off camera into some nice festive colours. Now I think it could probably do with a little light inside the grotto there, because it does look a little bit gloomy. Unfortunately I've not got one that's going to be small enough to be able to get in there really, because it's going to need a battery as well. However, I have noticed that Tram Fabrique have very recently released a button battery and light that should hopefully go in there, so I'm probably going to order some of those, and that could be an upgrade for next year. But for now I'm just going to get some of these sacks that I've painted up, and I've got some figures. So I've got a set of 3 figures that have come from Scale 3D. They're all painted up. He doesn't want to stand up. He's been supping at the Christmas spirit, I think. So I'm just going to glue those into position now, and then I think we're pretty much done. Okay, so there we have Santa's sleigh, complete with the 3 painted up figures. They came from Scale 3D, and I've also added a little Go Faster gold stripe down the side just to break up the red a bit. The front there is a strip of plastic art painted green. That's representing a wheelchair ramp, because being in a wheelchair should not be a barrier for getting to see Santa. And across the front of the grotto there is a computer printed sign, Nadolig Klamen, Merry Christmas. Now you might have noticed through this video a little bit of variation in the paintwork on the side of the sleigh there. That's because I came up with a cunning plan to do a wash of a glitter paint over the side, just to try and add a little bit of extra sparkle to it. Unfortunately, locally, the only colour I could find was a black glitter paint. Now, given that glitter paints generally are quite thin, and I was doing a wash anyway, I thought I'd give it a try. Hopefully all the black will come away and I'll just be left with the glitter remaining. Unfortunately, it didn't really work out that way. I wasn't very happy with the finish on it, so I left out the part of the video where I put that on, and then just removed it and painted over it again in the plain red. However, you can probably see there's a little bit of that glitter paint still on the grotto. I do think it looks quite nice there, because obviously being brown, it works better with a bit of black wash on it anyway. So if you thought there was something a bit odd about the paintwork in a couple of shots in the video, that's why. I may wind up trying to find some red glitter paint and apply a bit of that over, ready for next year. I'll update you if I do. So that's it, that's my quick build Santa's sleigh. There'll probably be additional detailing things that we could put on it if we can find some miniature decorations, like a little miniature Christmas tree. I think that would be quite good. I've not been able to find one of the right scale yet, which is why there's not one on there now. But hopefully you've enjoyed the video, whether you have any interest in making one or not. But if you did, you know, feel free to comment, like, subscribe and all that jazz. Other than that, Nadolig Llywyn. Merry Christmas everyone. Thank you.